Hello and welcome to the video wherein I explain how to use Bootstrap to make a website. Yay! Look how much fun we're going to have. Okay, so I got to test out my software here. I'm going to see if my option to pause works. Oh, well, there's a little pause button down there, so I guess I don't have to use my hotkey command. Okay, so let's start out with getting your assets together. The website that you're going to be making is based on the mock-up, the Photoshop mock-up you made at the beginning of the semester. So you should have some idea what kind of imagery and text and content you want. But I'm just starting from scratch, making sort of a bogus website just to demo how to do this. So what I had to do was figure out a website I was going to make and then go get some imagery and stuff for it. Now, you might need some imagery too for your website. So let me show you some resources that I used. One is this website, freeimages.com, and you can go here and get a free account, which I recommend, because once you get a free account and log in, then you can just easily download big versions of the pictures and then edit them in Photoshop. So I highly recommend that because you want big versions of the pictures so that when you edit them down to 72 pixels per inch for the web, then they still look good because they started out as high resolution. So what I did, because I'm just making a mock-up site here, I went to Free Images and I typed in the keywords funny animals, and I got these weird animals. Actually I just typed in funny, and these aren't really animals unless of course you're a parent, then maybe they are animals. But so I like this picture here of this monkey that was hanging out. And so because I'm logged in, it gives me the option to download all these files, including the biggest one. And if you don't log in, you can just maybe download this one right here, which is going to be kind of small. So see the size of this? It's really huge. Now I could probably have gotten away with this one because I'm going to make my image with 1200 pixels. And you see this one. Well, actually this one's 1920. Wow, I could have gone all the way down to this size and been okay, but I always get the big ones just in case. Anyway, so I downloaded this and then I opened it up in Photoshop, and what I did was I just went under image size and I changed its size so that it was 1200 pixels wide by whatever height that was going to be at 72 pixels per inch, which is the resolution for the web. So now what I need to do is I need to edit it so that we just have the top portion, which we can use as a header for the website. So what I did here was I clicked on my little selection box and I put in 1200 pixels as the width, and then for height I just put in 360. Now that's kind of a tall header. You could make one 300 or 250 or whatever height you want. I just did that, and what happens is your selection box then conforms to those numbers there. It's 1200 pixels wide by 360. So now I can just take this and put it wherever I want to get the crop of the monkey, right? So that's a nice crop right there. So I'm just going to go under Image, Crop, and there's our monkey. Now I can deselect this so I don't see the marching ants, the selection around the edge. Okay, so there's my monkey. So now I have to think about what kind of text I'm going to put here. Okay, so now we have to make some text. So I'm going to click on my type tool here and drag out a text box. And I'm going to type some text for my website. Now I'm going to try some different colors out. Again, sample the color from over here. And see how that looks. It's kind of hard to read. So how about we try some yellow? Goes down to more yellow. Okay, maybe if we give that like a black stroke or something like that. Let's see. Yeah, that's not too bad. Okay. All right, so we got our text up here. and that's our header. Now, of course, you can save a version of this header, and I would recommend it as a Photoshop document so you can come back in and make changes, but you're also going to want to save a ping version of it, .png file, to put in your website. Now, when it comes to images, you can save images in either JPEG or PNG format. You can also do .gif, GIF or GIF format, but it's not really recommended. And the format that is the preferred format is PNG, because it's the smallest file size and the best looking. But there's nothing wrong with JPEG. It does work well. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this. So I'm going to go to my desktop here, and I'm going to make a new folder. And this folder is going to be what's eventually going to be the site folder that I'm going to point Dreamweaver to. So I'm going to call this, let's just call this Bootstrap website Lumo. Okay, we'll create that on the desktop. Now, this image in here is going to be my PSD header, and so I might make a folder in here and call this like master files, and save this one in there as header.psd. Now, that's never going to get uploaded to the web. That's just for me to come back to if I want to make changes. But I do need to export a ping of this and put it in an images folder inside of my main folder so that I can use that for the web. So I can go File. I have a couple options here. I can go Save for Web, or Quick Export to Ping is one of the options that you guys have. You can use that. I'm just going to do the Save for Web, and I'm on a slightly older version of Photoshop here, which is why it looks a little different. But so Save for Web, and then you have like GIF, JPEG, and Ping. Ping 24 is what I use. If you've got a transparent background, you click that transparency option, and I'm just going to hit Save. Now what I have to do is find my folder, Bootstrap Lumo. I have to make a new folder inside there called Images with a lowercase I, because remember, everything is lowercase when you're building websites. And then this will just be called Header Ping in my Images folder inside my Bootstrap website Lumo folder, right? Okay, so we got that, so we're good to go. So now we're going to go over to Dreamweaver. Okay, and here's the latest version of Dreamweaver. And the first thing you do in Dreamweaver is you set up a site. So we're going to go under Site, New Site. We're going to call this, you can call it whatever you want, but I'm just going to call mine Bootstrap Website Lumo. Click on this little icon here, this folder icon, and then that's going to allow you to search your computer for the folder you want to use to build your website in. So we're going to just go ahead and choose this one, Bootstrap Website Lumo, choose. Okay, and then right now we're just setting up what's called a local site, which is on our computer. But if we were going to upload this to the web, which we'll look at eventually, we would also put in the server information, which would be the username and password and location of your server, your hosting server, so you could upload this and have it be visible on the web. But this is all we're going to do right now, is just set it up locally. So we'll just hit Save. Okay, so it's building a sitemap. Okay, so hopefully it did that. Okay, so now when we look in here, we see our master, we're inside the Bootstrap Website Lumo folder. We see our master files, which we're not going to worry about. That's just our PSD. We're never going to do anything with that as far as the website, unless we have to come back to it. And then our images folder. Okay, so what we need to do now is start building the actual Bootstrap site. And of course, we need to get some more images for our website, and we'll probably get those as we go, as we need to fill out the different sections. But let's start out by making a Bootstrap site. So we'll say New. I want to make a new HTML page. We want to make it a Bootstrap page, so you want to click on this Bootstrap link over here. You want to create a new page, but you don't want to include a pre-built layout, so you want to uncheck that. And then we'll just go ahead and click Create. Now what's going to happen is it's automatically going to throw in all the components that Bootstrap will need. So a CSS folder with style sheets in it, a fonts folder. We've already got that images folder, which we made in a JavaScript folder for some coding. And then what it does here is it makes your first web page, but we need to save this now. So we'll go under File, Save As. Of course, it's going to save it right in our same folder. And we're simply going to call this index.html, all lowercase, and hit save. Now you can see that the index.html shows up in your file list over here. And this is what it looks like so far. There's not much going on. By the way, I just installed the latest version of Dreamweaver on this computer, which is why those annoying little things come up. Okay, so we're looking at this in split view. Split view has, the top is what's called the design view, which is what the user sees. This is the back end, which is the code view. So this is referred to the front end and the back end. And you can jump back and forth between these views. Live view will show you kind of what it looks like on the web. And of course you can click down here to preview it on the web. Okay, so we have just a minimal amount of HTML code here. Just the generic start, the doc type, which tells the computer it's HTML. The beginning and ending HTML tags here, which say where your website starts and ends. Your beginning and ending head tags. Remember, the head tags are, the head section contains information for the computer. Beginning and ending body tags, and that's anything between the body tags is what shows up on the website. And all we have in here right now is calls to a couple of JavaScript files, which are in here, which help power the website. Up here in the head, we have a character set command, UTF-8, which is Latin-based English. We have a command here which tells us it's a helper command for Internet Explorer, telling it that it can use the Edge browser and probably connecting it to some style sheets that will make it compatible with the latest version of Microsoft and earlier versions of Microsoft. These are all called meta tags right here. It's informational tags for the computer. This will help us with mobile devices and setting the scale for those so the website will look correct. This is the title for our website, and so I can put, you know, whatever I want in here. So what I'll do is I'll highlight this. So I'll be having some trouble highlighting it, and I'll just put in the title of my website. And this this will appear at the top of the browser when you see your site. Down here we have a link to the style sheet, which is in the CSS folder. It's called bootstrap.css. And then this is all just what are called comments. Everything in gray is a comment. It kind of tells you what everything is doing, right? Okay, so we're good, except for clearly I have to do some house cleaning, some spring cleaning on my drive because it's just full. Okay, so we got nothing going on here right now except for the generic code. So we need to start building a web page. So we're going to come over here to Insert, and this Insert menu is where you have a bunch of different options to insert different things on your website. So right now it's set up for generic HTML things like divs and images, but you can also insert form components, jQuery Mobile, which is building apps inside of Dreamweaver, jQuery user interface, and so on and so forth. But what we're going to choose is Bootstrap components. So this has little jigsaw puzzle pieces that we can use to build our website. So of course, to build our website, we're going to click down here after the body tag. And let me just go in here into my preferences and make this text a little bigger down here. So if I go to fonts and I go into size, I can click on largest and hit apply and close. So now you can see this is a much nicer big view of the text. Okay, so I'll come down here and click right after my body tag and make some space here so that I can insert everything, because remember, everything's basically going to go right here after the body tag before these JavaScript calls at the bottom. You tend to leave those at the bottom of your page so they're easy to find, and this is the closing body tag. So everything has to go between this tag and this tag that you want to appear here. So we'll just we'll just put it right after that tag. We'll click on the line after that. So I can tell this thing is going to come up every 12 seconds, so I'm going to ignore it as much as possible and just click it off. You see me do that, just ignore it. Anyway, so what we need to do is we need to put a container in, which is the outside wall of the website. And as I talked about in class, we're actually going to use two containers. We're going to use a static fixed width container, which is going to center the page, and that is going to make it so the page sits in the center and has like a fixed width. But then inside of that fixed width container, we're going to put a fluid container, which is going to resize based on the size of your browser. So that is going to be the best of both worlds. Now, clearly I have to deal with this stupid thing, or it's going to come up every 12 seconds. So let me pause this and see if I can deal with that stupid thing. Right at 20 gigs worth of junk. That's no guarantee this little message won't come up anymore, but hopefully we'll get lucky. Okay, so here we are, clicked after the body tag. We're going to come up here. First we're going to insert a regular container. So we're going to click on this container tag here, and it's going to insert a container, right? And once again, that's just the outer wall. It's what's called a div, which is a division. That means it's a flexible box that can, have other boxes inside of it, and that's how we build our web page, with these divs, which are these boxes. It's kind of like using a table in Microsoft Word. So we've got our div, which is the container, which is represented by this blue line here. There's nothing in it, so it's kind of small. But what we're going to do now is click in between the beginning and closing tags of this. And of course, tags are anything with these angle brackets on them. This is called beginning angle bracket here and the ending angle bracket here. So that means that the beginning tag is this div class equals container, and the closing tag is /div. So if we click, when I say click in between the tags, I mean between these angle brackets, between tags, and hit your enter key a couple times. And what that does, it'll bring this down here so we can put some content in here. Now, so we know that these are both divs. This is a beginning div, and this is an ending div because it has a / in front of it. And we know that these are tags because they're surrounded by angle brackets. Now, these are formatting tags, which help us format the page. Now, this one has a class on it, and a class is a type of style that sits on the style sheet. The class for this is called container, and that makes sense because it's just a rigid container, a fixed width container, which is going to hold our website. Now, you'll see different keywords here inside of divs. You'll mainly see two. One is called class, and then it will give the name of the style. And a class is a style that's used over and over again. It's sort of a general style. The other thing you'll see is the letters ID. And ID is also a type of style, but it's one that's generally just used once. So for example, you might have a header ID and you might only use that once. And so that style might be called ID equals quote header, and that would also be on the style sheet. So the general rule is if it's a class style, that means it can be used over and over again. If it's an ID, it's generally only used once. Okay, now we're going to go in here inside of the container tag, and we're going to indent. And the indentation, the tabbing in, shows us that whatever is here is inside of here. So by indenting, we're saying, hey, it's like Russian nesting dolls. We're nesting this next div inside of this one, right? So that you get the idea that there's a wall out here and then walls inside of it. Boxes within boxes. Okay, so here we go, and here is where we're going to insert the container fluid, right? So we'll click on this container fluid, and sure enough, it makes a container fluid in there. We'll click in between the beginning and ending tags and put some space there. Notice it automatically indents for us, so now we can put something inside the container fluid. Now, everything seems so abstract right now. We can't really see anything up here in the screen, and that could be problematic, at least with your understanding. So there's things that you can do about that, just temporary things to help you visualize. So for example, we could click here within this style tag here, div class equals container, and we could type the word style equals quote, and then we could type the word background, colon, and we could say something like red and put a semicolon there. Now, let's see what happens. Absolutely nothing. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So what we did was we basically filled the background of this main container with red. So this style information that you see, that normally lives on the style sheet, which is this right here, bootstrap.css. The source code is the index page, which is the page we're on now. But if we click over to here, we can see the style sheet, and this is what the style sheet looks like. And these are all the styles, right? Now, what I'm doing here is called writing an inline style, and that means it's actually in the line of the code here. And you're not supposed to do this. You're supposed to put all the styles on your style sheet. That's the best place to put them. But occasionally I'll put styles here just to demonstrate things for you guys. So we said style equals background red. Now we know that this is the container, which is the wall around the website, but we also know that inside of that is a fluid container. So watch, if I take this code here, I'm going to copy it, Command C. I'm on the Mac right now. If I take that code and I paste it down here, and then I change the background to blue, okay, now do you see that there's the fixed width container, which is this one right here, which has a red background, and then inside of it is the container fluid, which has a blue background. You can kind of see them both in there. So just by adding those colors in, and I love to work with colors, I color my divs whenever I can, just because it makes it easy to see what's going on. And I highly recommend this as a method of working, especially when you're first starting. Okay, so now we've got a div within a div, container within a container. We've built those two, and now we can start putting some content in. Now, one point I want to make to you is, as we move forward and we keep adding more and more rows in and more divs, more container, or excuse me, we're not going to add any more containers, just more divs. I want you to notice that the very end of our website is going to be these two tags here. This ending tag ends the fluid container, and this one here ends the container itself, which is wrapped around the fluid container. So this is the very last tag of the website, and this is the second to last. But what I want to show you is that as we add more and more code in this section here, which is nesting divs inside of these two containers, these two will always remain the end of the website. They'll always be the bottom of the page. So if you get lost and you're like, oh, I need to add something in at the bottom of the page here, all you have to do is scroll down to the page, find these two tags, and put whatever you want to right above that. And it will appear underneath everything else because this is the end of the page. Okay, and we'll come back to that and discuss that again. Okay, but now what we want to do is we want to start putting in some grid rows with columns. That's the basic building block for us. We put in these rows, we tell how many columns we want them to have, and then we put our content in there. Or maybe additional rows nested within other rows, like for example this nav bar, which will be up at the top. So I'll go here, I'll hit my tab key to tab in to show this tabbing that this is inside of this, which is inside of this. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a grid row with column, and I'm going to just make this one big column. So it's just going to be one big column across the whole row. So I'm typing a 1 in there, I'm hitting OK. So it made two divs actually. It made one div which is called the row, and that goes all the way across. And then inside there it made a div which holds the content. It's basically the column, that holds the content. If I had said in the last screen that came up that I wanted 3 rows, we would get 3 of these little divs here. And then they would be evenly spaced across, and we could put different content in each. So the other thing I want to point out to you, notice that this has a class called row, and that's pre-built into Bootstrap. It knows what a row is. On the style sheet, that information is in there. And sure enough, there's also, for the columns, there's a class which defines the columns, right? In this case, call LG12. And what this means is column large 12. And as I've explained to you guys, the way that Bootstrap works, it's a grid system. And what it does is it takes the width of your web page here and it divides it up into 12 equal sections going across. And then when you insert a grid row with columns, based on how many columns you want, that's how many sections of the 12 total it gives you. So I said I wanted just one big column, so it put all 12 of them into one big column. If I say that I want 2 columns, it's going to make 2 divs here, but the class will be column large 6 for both of them, because 6 plus 6 equals 12. If I had made 3 columns, it would be column large 4 3 times. Okay, but I've just got one, so I'm going to click in here between my beginning and ending div tags, and I'm going to push that down a little bit just so you can see where it is. And now I want to insert my header image, right? Now, in order to see our images, we have to go back here to this Files tab, and these are all the things that are in our site, right? Now, we want this header image to resize dynamically, so we want it to be what's called a responsive image. A responsive image is one that has code in it which programs it to resize as the browser resizes. So what we have to do is actually insert a Bootstrap component, which is a little gray square. It's a placeholder which has all of the responsive image properties, and then just swap it out for our image. So what we'll do is we'll go back here now to insert, and we'll say that we want to insert a responsive image, and we'll just choose default. Now, when you do that, it puts in this big ugly gray square, which is the placeholder image, and it puts a million pieces of code in here. Because you haven't saved it recently, it doesn't quite know where you want it to go. But because we set up a site first thing and pointed it to this folder here, as soon as we save this, it will automatically know where it's supposed to go. So if we just say File, Save, it says, oh, you want to use a placeholder image? Well, we've got to save that somewhere. How about in your images folder? And we'll say OK. Now see how nice the code gets now? Now it's dropped in a line of code here which says that there's an image, IMG short for image, and SRC stands for source, which means where is the image? What's the source of it? And then it says equals, and then this is the path down to your images. And sure enough, it's inside your images folder, and now there's something called image responsive placeholder.ping. That's what this is, right? For class image responsive, that's once again coded into Bootstrap. It tells it how responsive images work. The alt tag is a tag that you can see if you roll your mouse over an image on the website. It gives the name of the image. And this is good for two things. It's good for people with screen readers, people that are visually impaired. They'll use a program like JAWS, which is a software program which talks. And when it sees an image, it will read whatever the alt tag is for that image. So that's one thing that you can use it for. Another is it helps with search engine optimization. You put the names of images in here that are what's called keyword rich. They have keywords that you want people to use to find your site, and that will come up in search engines. Okay, so what we need to do now, though, is we just need to replace this responsive image with our image. So if we just look here in images folder, our image is called header.ping. So we're going to leave this pointing to the images folder, and we're going to highlight this image responsive placeholder, and we're just going to change this to the word header.ping. And you can see as you do it, when you get your image in there with the proper name, it'll kind of show it as a rollover, right? Okay, so there we got our monkey business header that's come in, and we can still see, you know, the background of the responsive div and the background of the container div. Okay, now what I recommend you do is save your files on a regular basis. I usually save it every couple of minutes, or certainly after I've done something major, because I don't want to lose that if my computer crashes or my software crashes or something like that. Okay, so now we've got the monkey business header up there, and we want to start adding other things. Now what I'm doing is I'm building sort of a generic website, which hopefully is similar enough to the ones you guys are building that you can use all of these tools. So what we're going to have is we're going to have a header. Obviously we've got our containers in there already. We're going to put in a nav bar, we're going to put in some main content, and then we're going to put in a footer. Now, you can jump over here to your style sheet, your bootstrap.css style at any time, and add styles, and as you add them, they'll show up here in your web page. Now, this page is really long. It's got 12 million styles on it. It goes up to like 67, 57 lines of code, right? So clearly you're not going to go in there and mess with all that stuff. But this is all just default stuff that allows all of these components to work. But you can add in whatever you want to here. Now what I tend to do is add styles in up at the top of the page where they're easy for me to find, or if I'm adding styles that apply to a certain part of the web page, like the navigation bar, I might add them right in near the other existing navigation styles. But what we're going to do is we're going to go up here to the top of the style sheet and we're going to make some space right up here. This gray stuff here is called comments. And we're going to leave that alone. That's just information for you to read if it's useful. And then all this colored stuff is the actual style. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up here, and you can see that there's something called a body style. And you can repeat styles. You can have more than one body style in here, and they all kind of add together and apply to the body. Now, what is the body? Body is, this word right here is a keyword, and what it means is anything that you put inside of a body style is going to apply to the entire website. It's the body of the website, right? So I can go up here and I can type the word body. I can hit my space bar and I can hit the first curly brace, which is to the right of the letter P on the keyboard. Now when I do that, it makes the first curly brace, and it also makes the ending curly brace because we're going to need those for a style. And it also gives us what's called code hints. And these are all of the different styles that you can use right now at this point. Now I'm not going to use my code hints right now. I'm simply going to hit my return button or my enter button. Now what we see is the formatting that you want to use for a style sheet. It's got the name of the style, which is body. It's got the curly braces, which say to the computer, okay, this is the name of the style, and then the curly braces say, okay, whatever's within these curly braces, that's the style we want you to apply. Now the style is further broken down by a pair of terms here. The first is the name of the style, and then a colon, which basically equates to an equal sign, and then the value of the style. And then it ends with a semicolon telling you that that line of code has ended. So all I want to do here is I'm looking at this white background and it's kind of making me go, oh my gosh, that's just too white and glaring. I want to get rid of that. So all I want to do is add a background color to my whole web page. Remember, the body style applies to the whole web page. So I'm probably going to just put in some dark green. Now, to get my color for this, I could go back to Photoshop and I could click on my eyedropper tool, and I could click down here and try and find a dark green. And then I could click on that color and it will show me the hexadecimal version of this color, which is, hexadecimal is a combination of letters and numbers that's 6 long that represents a computer code which will produce that color on websites. So I can come down here and highlight this hexadecimal number, right click on it and copy it, and then I can come back to Dreamweaver and I can add that color in as the background. Now all I have to do is type in the style name background, put a colon, which means equal. And then at this point, if I wanted to select my own colors, I could click on the color picker and I would get this little thing here, and I could devise my own colors by dragging around in here, dragging up here to pick a color. I could go through here to pick the shade of the color, or I should say the color itself, and this is the shade, how much light or dark it has in it. And this is the transparency of the color, how transparent it is. Now I could do that, or I could simply paste in the hexadecimal number I got from Photoshop. Now you got to remember, if you paste in a number from Photoshop, you always have to put the pound sign in front of it. Pound sign is important for the computer. If it sees the pound sign and then a combination of 6 numbers and letters, it will know that's a color, a hexadecimal color, and it will apply it where you want it to. So after I do that, I can simply hit my enter or return key, and of course there it is. And then you have to remember always to put a semicolon at the end of your line of code. Now, if I go up here and I click in here, this thing really should update right away and show me the color. But it's not updating. Now, the reason it's not is because CSS, which stands for Cascading Style Sheets, is hierarchical, which means that there's a ruler, right? There's a king and a queen and a jack and all the way down, right? So you know how I told you that you can have a style more than once? Well, we can see that there's a body style down here, and you can imagine that there's probably more body styles as we go down the page. Well, somewhere down there they said, hey, we want white to be the background color. And unfortunately, my style that I put in here is not high enough in the hierarchy to override their style. So their style is getting precedence. That's why the white is showing up. However, there's a special keyword you can put in here to make your style always take precedence over what existing styles there are. And what that is you put in a exclamation point, and then you put in the word important. What that does is it makes your style the top of the heap, the king or the queen, right? And now that is going to be the overarching style that dictates this particular attribute to everything else. And so now the background is this dark green. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is add in a navigation bar down here at the bottom. So what we'll do is we'll go back to the source code, click over here on source code, and that will once again take us back to our index page, our home page, right? Now I want you to notice that this bootstrap.css has a little asterisk next to it. And whenever one of these pages gets an asterisk like that, it means that a change has been made to the page, but it hasn't been saved. So, you know, if you're like me, you're a little paranoid, you want to save on a regular basis so you don't lose anything, you can just do File, Save All, and that asterisk will go away, which means all the pages have just been saved. So, okay, so now we're going to put a navigation bar. Now we've got some code starting to build up here, and we might be like, oh, where the heck is the bottom of the page? So we're going to go back and use that trick where we say, oh, these two have to be the end of the page because these two are the beginning of the page, right? So that means that's the very last tag, and that's the tag in between. Now this is really helpful in Dreamweaver. If you click on a tag, it shows you where, if you click on a beginning tag, it shows you where the ending tag is, and vice versa, ending tag and beginning tag. So all we have to do is say, okay, we know that this is the end of the web page, so if we make some space above that, we're going to be sort of at the bottom of the web page right here at this point, which is where we want to put our next thing, navigation bars. So we'll go ahead and go here. Now, these divs up here, the one that contains the row and then contains the column, and after that contains the image inside of it. Notice the way that these are tabbed in. I just moved that div tag here so these line up. So in other words, this div, which is the column div, which holds the monkey image, this starting div and the ending div are lined up so that their left side is even if you drew a straight line up here. And notice that the div that this is inside of, which is the row div, the same thing is true. If you drew a line here, these are left aligned to that. And this is what helps you spot the nesting, you know, that this is inside of this and what the beginning and ending tags are. And the same is true of these other tags. They're all kind of lined up. And that's a visual clue to help you with figuring out the nesting. Now the next tag that we're going to put in, which we're going to put in right here, is going to be the menu bar. And so for the, you know, when we're trying to figure out how far in to indent that, well, we know it's going to be inside of this because this is the fluid container div. But since it's not going to be inside of this one up here, which is this top row, we can probably put it down here and just have it be at the same level as this one. In other words, the same amount of indentation, because essentially this row is going to be inside of these two containers just like this row is. So we could put it at the same level here. So we'll just put it there. We'll click over here. We'll go grid row with column. Once again, we're only going to have one column because our content's going to go all the way across. We'll click OK and see how these divs line up on the left side with these divs, because they're basically in the same location, just inside of these sets of divs. So once again, just like above, we have a row, we've got a column, large 12, and then in here is where we'll put our content. Now I'll go ahead and hit my enter button to knock the closing div down here so it's lined up with this. I'll click in here. I might tab in a little more to show that my content is in there. You could do that here if you wanted to. Show that that image is inside of those. It really doesn't matter. It can be, it's only the divs we're really concerned about when it comes to nesting. So I guess we'll leave that right there. So now we're going to put our navigation bar in here in this new row that we created at the bottom. So what we're going to do is click there, and we're going to come up here and say we want to put a nav bar in and a basic nav bar. Okay, now this nav bar uses up a ton of code. You can see because it gets highlighted here we got all of this code represents the nav bar. Okay, and you can see that it ends with the /nav tag. That's the ending nav bar tag. There's a bunch of divs. There's a list here, which is the drop-down menus over here. Then there's a link, which is this link right here. There's a submit button, which is this bad boy. Search box, this. Another drop-down menu, which is this guy right here. Some more links, drop-down link. And then this thing called brand over here, which is if you want to put a logo there. And then sort of our starting code to begin the nav bar. Now, this nav bar, unfortunately, is going to take a bit of hacking to get it into the shape that we need it to be able to use it. And the first part of that hacking is just getting rid of the stuff we're not going to use. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this as streamlined as possible, as simple as possible, so that it's easy to use. So I'm going to get rid of this brand word over here. I'm going to get rid of this drop down. I may leave this search box and get rid of these links over here because we don't need them. Then we're going to center all this so it looks good in the middle of the website, and then work on customizing the colors of like the background and the text. So let's start by getting rid of what we don't want. So if you want to locate where something is in the code, just click on it, and more often than not, Dreamweaver will come down and highlight that for you. So, or at least put your text cursor there. So it put my text cursor right here where the word brand is. Now, I don't want this word brand at all. I think it's annoying, and I want to get rid of it. So I'm gonna get rid of the whole, not just the word brand, but also the tags around it. There's something called an A tag. Begins here and ends here with a class of navbar brand. And once again, that just tells you what the style is. Now, another name for a style is a rule. And a rule, of course, is just, what the style would look like. Now I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all of that by just highlighting it and hitting my delete key, and that goes away. Now I'm going to leave these links because I do want them. I'm going to get rid of this drop-down menu, and in order to do that, I'm going to click on this tag here called LI, and LI stands for list item. And all of these items here, this is basically a list. A navigation bar is a list, like a grocery list, right? And so these list items are indicated by LI, and the list itself is indicated by this tag here, which is called UL. This stands for an unordered list. So what happens is, you can see we have a div up here which creates a nav bar, and then we say, okay, now we have an unordered list, and then we have a bunch of list items, and then / unordered list, and that's where our list ends. Now, an unordered list is simply a list that has no numbers in front of it. If these were labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, then it would be called an ordered list because it would be in some type of order, and this tag would change to OL for ordered list. Okay, so we want to keep some of these navigation bar items, some of these list items here, right? You can see, like for example, this word link here. It's a list item with a class of active, and so we have the beginning LI tag and the ending LI tag, and then, whatever content is in there, in this case, the word link. Well, we're going to keep these first two, but we want to get rid of the drop-down, which is this third list item here. So we can click there and see where the beginning and the ending is, and then we can just highlight all of that and just hit delete, right? Okay, so we got rid of that. We can keep our search box because that's kind of cool, right? But now maybe we want to go over and find out where this link is. So if we click on it, it highlights it down here. We say, okay, we don't like you. In fact, I don't think we want this navbar right section at all. So this is a whole separate little menu from this one. And you can see unordered list class equals navbar right? So if we scroll down here, we can say, you know what? Here's where it starts, here's where it ends. It starts on 47, ends on 58. Let's just get rid of this whole thing because it's icky and we don't like it. Okay, good. Now, by the way, these little gray items, this text that you see in here, I've mentioned before, it's what are called comments. And this is just information for you to help you out. Like this is just telling you that this div is the end of the navbar collapse section. And you can see collapse navbar up there. And this div is the end of the container fluid, which page. Don't tell me. Don't tell me. I think it's this one right here. Now, one thing I want to show you is, you know how in the top, at the top, we created a container and then we nested a container fluid inside of that. Notice that there's a container fluid nested inside of this nav bar, right? And so what that goes to show you is you can use that trick over and over again to insert fluid containers into divs to give you some responsiveness where they resize. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to go ahead and stop because I'm going to go on to make a second video so we can finish this. So I'm going to stop this video so that it doesn't get too large, and then we'll go on to the second one.